I have been living and camping with both of these batteries right here, the Anker 521 and the Anker 535, for the past 6 months or so. But now, it's time for something a little bit bigger. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things. Today we're taking a look at this brand new battery coming from Anker, the 757 Powerhouse. Now, generally when I was looking for information on these battery banks, a lot of people are reviewing them from a home perspective. They're using this as a battery source if the power goes out, so you can power appliances, computers, and whatever else you may need at the home. That's where my usage differs a little bit because I'm using these things mainly 100% off-grid. For the past 6 months, this Anker 535 went with me everywhere. For my campsites, in my truck, in my van, no matter what vehicle I was in, I was using this as my primary power source, and I've already reviewed this one in the smaller version, so if you want to take a look at that video, I'll leave a link for it right up there in the corner. Now with the new 757 offering from Anker, I'm almost tripling the capacity of my normal go-to battery. It still has a ton of great features, and for the past week or so I've been putting this through its paces outdoors. Now when it comes to my needs for a battery like this, primarily using it outdoors and camping all of the time, there are about 3 things that I'm really looking for. The actual capacity, how long this thing will last and how much stuff it will actually power. The size of the unit itself, so how much it weighs, its actual external dimensions, as well as, and probably most importantly, the durability. As you can tell, this thing is dirty, and I definitely put it through its paces. I haven't even wiped it off since we got back from the mountains. It's scratched up a little bit, and I've really been using this thing how I would in a real-world situation. So let's dive into some of the specs first to see what we're working with here, and then we will get into some of those real-world examples to show you what this thing is actually capable of. With the Anker 757 Powerhouse, we're looking at 1,229 watt-hours of power. With that crazy high battery capacity and all of the technology packed into this thing, it can output about 1,500 watts. So let's take a look at some of the ports on this guy. We have 4 USB-A ports powering things at 12 watts. And then we have 2 USB-C ports, one of them at 60 watts and the other at 100 watts. The reason I love this is because it allows you to get rid of your bulky adapters, computer chargers, and all of that sort of junk that you have to carry around with you to charge your devices. With a 100 watt USB-C port, I can power my 16-inch MacBook Pro time and time again. Over on the left-hand side here, we have a typical car socket powering at 120 watts. Some people may think that something like this is a little bit outdated, but I actually still use a lot of different devices that can use a socket like that. The Geyser hot shower system if I want to have a hot shower while I'm off-grid. A lot of the 12-volt fridges that I use have a port for that. And even in the wintertime, my ski boot warmer, you can slide those down into the bottom of your boots, power them up with that socket right there. So I'm glad that they still include that on the 757 Powerhouse. Now moving over to the right side, we have not 1 or 2, but 6 AC outlets allowing you to power essentially anything that you can plug into this. We're talking battery chargers, appliances, electric rideables like a one-wheel or an electric bike, electric skateboard. In a home application, these 6 AC outlets are definitely going to come in handy. And then everything else on this unit is pretty straightforward. We have a power button to turn on the car socket. We have a power button for the AC outlets. We have a display button which you can press to light up that super nice backlit display. You can tell that I've already sort of scratched up my screen because I've been using this thing, but I will say that this thing has been very durable so far. To the left of the screen here, we have a power saving switch, and essentially what this is good for is if you're charging any kind of device or maybe camera batteries. That's where I typically use it. I can plug in all of my camera batteries here into the AC outlets, and then when I have that power saving switch turned on, it will be indicated right up here on the display. That way when the batteries get full, it will turn off the power. That way you're not having any kind of phantom draw. And then the icing on the cake is this LED bar up here, which was found on both the 521 and the 535. So if I tap that, we have low mode, medium, and high. It just adds a nice little ambiance to your campsite, especially when you're using it outdoors. There are 2 super big rugged grab handles on here, which makes it great for strapping it down in the back of a vehicle, as well as picking it up and moving it around because this thing is packed with batteries. It's coming in with a weight of about 43.9 pounds, so Definitely not light, but a ton of capacity in this thing. On the sides, you will find some blue accents in these little vents here. Those are important for when you are charging because these batteries need to vent. I'm typically seeing an input of about 1,000 watts every time I charge this thing from 0 all the way up to 100. And then on the back side here, we have a little magnetic door which gives you access to where you plug in that power outlet. In the middle, we have a little fuse reset button, and then over on the right-hand side, we also have an input for solar, which the other two did not have in the past. Now, speaking of charging, when plugging this into your wall at home, you can go from 0 to 80% in about 1 hour. If you're going from 0 all the way up to 100%, you're looking at maybe an hour and a half, and with my testing, those numbers remain true. That crazy fast recharge is thanks to their hyper flash technology, and essentially inside of this thing, it's almost like a computer. Now, since this thing is essentially a solar generator at the same time, you can plug 300 watts into this over here and charge with the sun from 0 to 80% in about 3.6 hours, which is pretty insane. I did not have the solar panels for my testing, but that is definitely something that I want to add in the future because, like I've mentioned, I'm using this thing outdoors, off-grid, all of the time. And when we are on some 2-day, 3-day, or even longer trips, it would be nice to charge this thing with the power of the sun. Now, another spec that's actually pretty important to me, but it may not be as important to someone who is using this in a home setting, it's the discharge and recharge temperatures of these batteries. The 757 will discharge all the way down to -4 degrees and all the way up to 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and this will also take a charge at 32 degrees all the way up to 104 degrees. The reason that is important to me is because obviously when using this thing outside, you can get into some pretty high and low temperatures, so I want to know the threshold where this thing will actually work for me. And now for the real technology. Why is the Anker 757 Powerhouse so much better than basically anything else that you can get right now? This thing is packed with premium LPF battery cells which are rated to provide 3,000 cycles, whereas most competitor battery technology is only good for like 500 cycles if you're lucky. This means that this battery has a lifespan 6 times longer than a standard lithium-ion battery. With premium batteries like this, the Anker 757 Powerhouse boasts a 10-year lifespan. Anker also backs this up with an exclusive 5-year full device warranty. So a battery that will last 10 years, a warranty for 5 of those years. By the time this battery quits on you, Anker will probably have developed something even better. You're not just buying quality here, but you're also investing in the longevity. Now for the fun part, the stress test and actual real-world testing of this new battery. Over the weekend, we went out and camped at about 12,000 feet up in the Rocky Mountains, where we were seeing temperatures of about 75 degrees Fahrenheit all the way down to about 30 degrees Fahrenheit. It was super dusty. We had a bunch of friends out there with us, and I was basically letting anyone charge whatever they wanted with this battery to really see if we could even drain it all the way down to 0. So the testing started by using 2 of the AC ports where I plugged in a Dometic 12-volt fridge as well as a Camp Chef smoker and grill. I ended up running the fridge for about 8 hours that night, as well as the grill for 5 hours because we cooked a lot of food. We had some steak and some lobster. It was pretty wild. And with the fridge compressor running and the smoker on full blast, we were only drawing about 250 watts. That's where I decided, hey, we need to really fill up all of these ports. So the next thing I plugged in was my Anker 325 power bank. I bought this one a few weeks back, basically just to charge my phone and power some lights while we're at the campsite. It's nice and small and portable, so I can just leave it in my tent at night. I also plugged in some of my camera batteries to charge, so now we have the fridge, the smoker and grill, the Anker 325 power bank, as well as some camera batteries. We were still only drawing 275 watts. So then we took it to the extreme and started charging stuff that we didn't even really need to charge. I plugged in my Claymore Cap-On light, 3 DJI Mavic Pro drone batteries, as well as an iPad Pro and some cell phones. We were charging all of that stuff for about maybe an hour or 2. And by the time we put all of that load on the battery, the fridge compressor kicked off, the grill was starting to get up to temperature, so it wasn't using much power. So at that point, we were really only drawing like maybe 130 watts. With all of the gear that I have for camping, it would actually be super hard to get up to that 1500 watt output to actually trip this thing. I'm sure if I plugged in some power tools around here on the garage and just turned them all on high, we might be able to get there. But in a real world application, especially when you are out camping, you're going to have a really hard time of pushing this thing to its breaking point. So after charging all of that stuff for about 8 hours, it was around 11 p.m. at night and we decided to go to sleep. I didn't really have anything to charge at that point, so I decided to plug in my Starlink to this unit. I plugged the Starlink in at about 11 p.m. at night. We had 7 different devices connected to it, a lot of us streaming movies, watching Netflix, FaceTiming, and basically just using as much power as we possibly could. And the Starlink is actually kind of efficient, so we were really only drawing like maybe 35 watts up to 100 watts at like the peak output. So I ran the Starlink from 11 p.m. at night for about 9 hours until the morning, and I woke up to 4% left on this battery. So I think we did a pretty good job there of running this thing from 100 all the way down to 0. So for the 3 things that I look for in a battery like this, capacity, 100% there. We had a campsite with like 8 people all using this thing and it lasted all night. And then when it comes to the size, this thing is definitely a little bit bigger than the one that I'm currently used to. But where the size and the weight may be a con to some people, I absolutely love the size of this thing. The big grab handles on the side make it really easy to move around. I'll typically grab some bungee cords in the back of my truck here and strap it down. And speaking of that, as we're bouncing around off-road in a truck like this, obviously we're gonna get some scratches on here. Look at the dust on this thing. Like I said, I have not cleaned this battery yet. So most of the exterior shell is really nice plastic, but that will get dinged up a little bit. On the inside is a metal chassis though, so this thing feels super rugged, and there's a good chance this is gonna last me at least through that 5 years, possibly 10 years. We were also in a super dusty environment, so I'm curious to see in the future if dust getting inside of here will bother this thing. I could also grab some like air duster from my computer days and kind of blow all the dust out of this thing, but for now, absolutely no issues, and I'm gonna be bringing this thing on a lot of adventures here in the future. Basically, any camping video that you see on my channel here, this thing will be in tow and I will be using it time and time again, powering all of my devices, charging things. Basically, I'm bringing the power to the campsite now. This thing is retailing for about $13.99 right now, and a lot of people may think, wow, that's really expensive, but you gotta think about the longevity of the cells in this thing. This is going to last 6 times longer than basically anything else out there on the market, and by the time you run this thing into the ground, there's going to be something way better out there on the market because it's going to last roughly 5 to 10 years. So if you guys want any more specs on this thing, I will leave some links in the description down below where you can really dive into all of the information over on Anker's website. In the future, I will hopefully pick up some solar panels that are compatible with this. That way I can test out the solar functionality while we're out there camping. And when I have some more updates on the 757, I will fill you guys in with all of that stuff in some future videos. So that's all that I had for today. If you guys are new to this channel, consider clicking subscribe. I make new videos every week. As always, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.